Everybody, my name is Tom Alexander, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by nationally endowed for the arts jazz master for 2022. It is the great saxophonist Donald Harrison. Donald, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it's great to have you. You know, we're so excited about this because the South Beach Jazz Festival, now in its sixth year, we've had some wonderful artists, and you're going to be performing on Friday, January 7th. By the way, the event takes place the 7th, 8th, and 9th of January. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're there opening night along with the Blind Boys of Alabama. You're bringing your quartet, the Donald Harrison Quartet, to the North Beach Bandshell. They call it Sobe in Nobe. I got to hear about your quartet. It's obviously a standard quartet, bass, drums, piano, and yourself. Tell us about the other players, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, our pianist, Dan Kaufman, hails from Chicago, Illinois, and he's a great young pianist. Our bassist comes from Sapporo, Japan. He's another young giant on the bass. And our drummer is from New Orleans, Louisiana. He was a former student of mine who just kept getting so good, I had to hire him. And,
no choice, huh?
But right now, we're lucky to get him because Pat Metheny just hired him to be in his trio. So he's moving up the ranks quickly.
Wow. Yeah, he in demand then. And
he's really in demand, yeah. I mean, he has to cancel gigs to play with me. That's something.
Oh boy! Wow. Now, what's his name?
His name is Joe Dyson. Yeah, and the bassist's name is Nori Naraoka from Japan, and once again, the pianist is Dan Kaufman. And I'm really excited about this group because when I got to New York, I wanted to play with all the beboppers, and I had the chance to play with a lot of them. Yeah. And they taught me a lot of the things that Bird worked on with them. But I was never able to get a band where I could get them to understand the inner workings of bebop and how it's put together from Charlie Parker's perspective.
Right.
But this is the first band that is really making all the moves that I was taught, that I was able to teach as a band. Maybe I could get one player over the years. And even the great pianist, Benny Green, he heard some of the music, and he loves bebop as well as me. We both studied with Walter Bishop, matter of fact, Bird's pianist. But Benny Green says this is the first band that's really doing it that he's heard since the people that we came up under. So that's quite a compliment from a person who really knows the music as well.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And you kind of came up during that time, sort of a second wave of guys that were born maybe late 50s, early 60s, New Orleans scene. Of course, you had the Marsalis brothers and yourself and Terrence Blanchard and a lot of other folks that were kind of bringing the tradition, not only taking what was established by, Bird, Miles, Diz, all those guys, but bringing in fresh ideas into it. And that had to just be an exciting time kind of coming up at that period.
Yeah, I had a different idea than my peers because I grew up in the culture of New Orleans. My father was a big chief, so he had the connections to Africa, to Congo Square. So I grew up in knowing how the music of Congo Square influenced jazz. And also, I played in the brass bands a lot, and I used to go dancing to the music in the brass bands with my father before he even played music. So I was involved with the music of New Orleans culturally and all the connections with jazz, Congo Square, and Africa. I was one of the ones, because the cultural side is secret. So I was involved with the understanding how all those things were put together. And then I read in high school what Charlie Parker said, if you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. So to me, that meant I was alive at a time when I could be with the guys who were playing in New Orleans in the 20s, and I could learn from the whole history of jazz masters. So I actually took Johnny Hodges' place in the Dukes Men, and I played with all the beboppers. I played with free jazz. I played with smooth jazz guys. I played with soul jazz guys like Dr. Lonnie Smith, who was, down in South Florida.
Yeah.
I played, basically, I went to learn from all the masters of every era and style of jazz, the innovators of all of those styles, because I wanted my music to have all of that, but I wanted to live it. I went to Mississippi, learned the blues. Eddie Clean Head Jefferson, who was a great blues singer and saxophonist, he took me aside when he was listening to me. He said, "I'm going to show you some things about the blues." And he learned what he knew from a great blues artist named Big Bill Broomsey. So he passed down that stuff to me. And one of the things I wear on my shoulder with a chip of pride is, he said, the only person that he ever showed what I call his blues matrix to was Charlie Parker. So myself and Charlie Parker are the only ones that Eddie Cleanhead Vincent shared this incredible information with. So I just had a different idea of living the music through playing with everybody and then finding out where that took me. So what I do is really based in the knowledge that comes from being with those masters and them telling you exactly what they were doing and how to put it together. So it's a different thing. Now my young guys, since I taught them about bebop, they know when they listen to those records, they understand how all of those things are moving.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but it takes the right person explaining it to you. Then when you hear it, you're like, it makes sense. One of the happiest moments of my life was when Roy Haynes, who I played with for 15 years, told me I was his bebop brother. I couldn't believe that, because those guys don't never say that.
Wow. Yeah, and Roy's been around. He's been around a while, hasn't he? I mean,
he's played with everybody.
Everybody.
From Louis Armstrong to Chick Corea to even Pat Metheny.
Yeah.
Everybody you can almost name in the music.
Yeah. So you mentioned Pat Metheny. You mentioned the recently departed Chick Corea. You were a kid, a teenager, kind of growing up during the movement toward fusion, and what was happening with bands like Weather Report and Mahavishnu and Headhunters, and of course Miles's Electric Bands and Return of Forever and those kinds of bands. Did that have any impact on you at all? I mean, you were a bebop guy. I mean, you were rooted in the tradition of bebop, but did that catch your ear as well?
Oh yeah, I played with a lot of great fusion musicians. Larry Coryell in particular. I was in his band for a long time. But one of the things I thought was, what would have happened if they stayed acoustic and kept swinging with the music and kept and used the influences of popular dance music. So that's how I came up with this thing called Nouveau Swing, which came out in the 90s. But I was already hearing that way of thinking in the 80s to keep it acoustic. And so a lot of the young guys who are coming up, they say that was the way I did it was a perfect marriage. And some of them call it the Nouveau Swing albums, and Free to Be That Period, the Bible for them, because they listen to it. What they're telling me anyway is they listen to it to see where they're going to take the music.
Yeah.
I can say my nephew Christian Scott, who's come up with something unique. He says he'll tell you it started with with Nouveau Swing and him moving that around. So that Robert Glasper, all those guys.
Yeah.
They were influenced by this kind of idea. Well, we're all moving music in different directions. So it's beautiful just to see what everybody's doing with the music. We're going to play some Nouveau Swing. I was involved in the smooth jazz world. We'll play some of that. We'll play some New Orleans music when I come to Miami, and some I got into quantum physics some kind of way and started realizing uh, that the ideas of quantum physics, which is how things work in time, or quantum theory, or there's quantum time theory, and then there's looking at things from a macro perspective. I started realizing how some of those ideas, I guess, multiverse kind of way of looking at things, because I played a lot of styles of music as well. Studied down Cuba with Chucho Valdez and with the great Eddie Palmieri, those guys,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys in the Afro-Caribbean and Latin jazz category. Afro-Cuban, there's a lot of different names for it. And Brazil, Peru. I just went all over the world.
Yeah.
And tried to get as much music, so my life would be what Charlie Parker said. The music was, I lived it. So think of myself like a sponge. So when you squeeze that sponge, everything that went in comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. You live it. And remember years back having a conversation with Joe Zawinul, and he told me that he didn't really play music when he went away. When I not say go on the road, but when he went away for relaxation, he never played music. He just lived. He went out and lived, and then brought it back to the music, and experiencing the cultures of wherever he was. And it sounds like you're very much doing the same thing. Our guest is Donald Harrison, the great saxophone player, and he'll be at the South Beach Jazz Festival on January 7th. That's a Friday, and the show starts at 8 p.m. First, it's the Blind Boys of Alabama, and then, of course, the Donald Harrison Quartet at the North Beach Band Shell. That's at 7275 Collins Avenue in Miami Beach. You want to go to South Beach, or SoBe, I should say, SoBeJazzFestival.com, SoBeJazzFestival.com, SOBE, jazzfestival.com, and find out more and tickets and all that stuff. One of the things that kind of fascinates me is the compositional process. And you've composed music. You even had a work that was performed by the Moscow Symphony Orchestra, I believe 2016. And it's the compositional process. I mean, I don't know if where it starts. Sometimes I know that people can have an idea where they're taking a walk and these melodies start happening in their head, or they're driving somewhere, or they sit at the piano, or maybe you're playing a line on a saxophone that sparks something. Is it a combination of those kinds of things? Is it a deliberate sort of, I'm going to sit down and compose something, or sometimes does it spring from an improvisation, or all of that?
Yeah, I think it's all of it. If you're composing for a movie and a director, the hierarchy of the movie says they need this kind of sound, if you have that under your belt, then you can achieve it. Yeah. You have the skills. But my music just comes from where it comes from. Whenever I don't like to say my music. It's my contribution to our music comes from just living, and it can come from anywhere. Someone could be eating a lobster, and I'll say, "Oh," and I hear a sound from it. Anything. Yeah. I can look at your nice glasses and say, "Man, that's some hip glasses," and write a song about your glasses. Whatever, it's just, you never know what's going to hit you, and then you hear a sound. Yeah. Art Blakey used to say imagination, and he said one of his greatest composers, who was Wayne Shorter, he had a tremendous imagination. Those guys could write about the way someone walked.
Yeah. Wayne just completed his opera with Esperanza Spalding, and
right. So you never know. But the piece you're talking about with the Moscow Symphony Orchestra, that comes from the fact that I grew up in the culture, offshoot culture of Congo Square in New Orleans, and that none of the cultural participants the people who live in the culture, had ever written a piece about our culture. So I wrote a classical piece that they would know is their music. And it was really great when I played it for some of the other big chiefs, and they understood it and they started dancing in sections that I knew was the dance sections. But to a person who's listening from the orchestral perspective, they wouldn't think about it. But from the cultural perspective, they knew immediately, oh, that's this song, that's this song. And then they started dancing in the sections that was meant to have a sort of a classical dance beat, but the New Orleans, what I call Afro New Orleans dance beat, they immediately got it. And so I was like, Harrison, you may be on to something here.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. The horn itself, whether you're playing a tenor, I guess you play tenor predominantly, but when you switch from a particular horn, you maybe play alto. Separate of obviously the range is different, but is there anything about the tone of each instrument that might spark a compositional an idea? It's like, I wouldn't have thought of this, for example. I wouldn't have thought of this had I been playing soprano or alto, but I thought of it because I was playing the tenor.
Yeah, of course, each saxophone has a different voice and different capabilities and different things you can do with it. So yes, especially if I'm writing, I write for tenor differently than I write for alto and soprano. I don't play baritone that much, but I understand the concept. I did play baritone, so I understand the concept of it. So it can do different things between the baritone and the tenor. The baritone can do a lot of things that the tenor can't do.
Yeah.
You can actually think of a baritone as a bass instrument, part of the bass family, or you could think of it as a melodic instrument. So right there, it has a dual role that you could do it with a tenor, but it won't have the impact of a baritone.
Yeah.
So there's different things that the instruments do, and different ways you play them. You can get more sweetness out of the alto, I think, than any of them. Soprano is what it says. It's on the high end.
Yeah.
But it also has some grit to it. John Coltrane definitely played it with some grit.
Yeah. We were talking about fusion a few moments ago, and I often think a lot of what Weather Report was doing, Wayne was playing a fair amount of soprano on some of those tunes, and it gave it a whole different voice, and it was beautiful. Although, of course, prior to that, he was really known as a tenor guy, more so. I think at least he.
No, you're right.
Certainly with the quintet, with Miles's quintet. This event is a special event for a lot of reasons, but it's also it really focuses on artists, folks with disabilities, and helping those people. It's wonderful, and again, like I said, it's in its 6th year right now, and they have it's from disability to serendipity is what they say, and that's a wonderful phrase. That the South Beach Jazz Festival has adopted and is following through on. And, like anyone else, artists have challenges. They can be physical challenges. Certainly all of us experienced challenges during the pandemic and continue. I mean, we're seeing a rise again, a spike, unfortunately. During that period, particularly at the height of it, when we were first learning about it back in 2020, when people were just trying to figure out what to do next, what was it like for you? How did you navigate those sort of uncharted waters?
Well, we just personally, I just hung on for dear life, and made a lot of loans, which I'm in the process of paying back now, and just took it every break. We tried to go on the internet, find new ways to create some revenue for the music. I worked hard, and I was working on my patent, and my patent got approved for a new invention for music. So it makes you. I built the software for my invention during the pandemic. So trying to
Can you share with us about a little bit about that? What that does? What it is?
well, it's gonna give the person who's listening to the music a chance to choose whatever instrumentalist or vocalist or choose from a bay of different people to make the songs what they want them to. It gives it. No, you won't have a finite piece of music anymore. Now you can make the. Now you'll be able to make the music and change it, and maybe make it a new. You maybe create a new style of music. You have that kind of capability, or just use it in a normal way, and you'll be able to fine tune a song to your preferences. So it gives the user another way to look at it. But speaking of the, I got hit by 18-wheeler, so I was paralyzed. My left arm was paralyzed. So I know what it's like when you lose capability of something, and in pain that you could not imagine. Still in pain a lot. But I had to work the hardest I've ever worked in my life just to figure out how I was going to play again. Some of the music I wrote was during a period when I was, the orchestral music, when I was down like that. So yeah. Whenever something happens, it makes what I think from my experiences, when you have one disability, then it leads to you finding out other things that you can do with your life, and it shows you that you have more things inside of you, and it makes you come up with more ideas. So that's what it did for me, and I'm a proponent of helping people to do that, helping them to heal from where they are, and having hope, because I had to have hope and vision that I would get better and be able to play my horn again when it looked like maybe you won't play again. So that helps me to understand things that can be done when you have to work through pain and people telling you that you need an operation. I decided that I would do therapy, and the doctors still to this day are telling me that you're going to need an operation because you're so messed up. But I have faith in a higher power, and that's what I keep going by every day. And that's what we had to do during the pandemic, and that's what I try to share with the music and with people. So the fact that this festival is doing something like that it warms my heart, and I hope that everybody becomes better, and we even have a better world. Because for me, music, especially jazz, can help heal the world, and I'm on a mission to spread that message. I hope that we can build a better recognition of jazz music in South Florida. It's always been a dream of mine. Great people down there. I love to go fishing, so whenever I come to Florida, especially in March, I'm looking for Mr. Snook.
A lot of that. That's yes, Snook is a big one, that's for sure. Well, listen, we can't tell you how much we appreciate your time joining us today, and thank you for coming to South Florida for the South Beach Jazz Festival. Go to sobejazzfestival.com for more information and for tickets. The great Donald Harrison, our guest, and we'd love to have you on again sometime in the future. Safe travels and good journeys ahead with taking in the world and your music. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, I appreciate it. I just want to say once again that Congo Square is going to be released, the orchestral and jazz piece, multi-genre kind of piece. will be released January 1st, so look for it and keep supporting the music. And one thing I like to say is musicians are healers. So this festival is doing the right thing. Art Blakey used to say music washes away the dust of everyday life. So let's get it going on and have some fun.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you very much, Donald Harrison, our guest. Thank you for
Thank you,
watching
Mark.
and listening. We'll see you again soon. So long, everybody.